everybody. This is a fusion project I've had ongoing for several years now. It's field maples. If the label's to be believed, 26 of them, and they were put in this pot in the spring of 2016, so that's 4 years. The reason it's looking all very lopsided is because there's I've had this pot on the floor and they had rooted well into the ground. It's just taken me a fair bit of a wrestle, and in the end I had to give up and cut the roots because they were just solidly rooted into the clay soil that makes up my garden. So first thing I'm going to have to do is I want to get it out of this pot. First thing I'm going to have to do is cut all this away so that you can see there's a large root in the pot there. Cut all this away so I can get it out of the pot. It's that'll cut the pot off. Okay, so watching that piece of wire that's sticking out there, and get a hold of this tree. Okay, it's not going to come loose easily. Okay, there's going to have to be some big guns. Okay, so what I just did was laid the tree on the ground on its side, stamped up and down on the side of the pot whilst rolling it, and that has just basically squishing the sides of the pot in has allowed me to get into the root ball. So okay, here we go. Let's see what we got here. As you can see, the tree has fused, not entirely around the base, but a number of the trees have fused at the base line. Let's see if we can zoom that in. So we have fusion here, and in odd places throughout the trunks. We've still got a ways to go yet. Okay, so these trees are put in a bundle, and some of the trees have fused. At this point there's some good fusion just here, these couple of trees, and they've unfused. Well, not unfused, just not fused. Some fusion going on in this section, and we can see that a trunk has died from this point upwards in there, so that's just snapped under my finger. Let's see if I can hoik that out. No, I can push it further in. See if I can get it with my tweezers. A tree grows best in its own litter. I've heard said before, and possibly just as an excuse not to have to rake up the leaves underneath it, but there you go. Got kind of a peculiar, almost triangular edge to the trunk here, but maybe that'll round out a bit with age, or maybe in the future I could put in some seedlings here just to fill out a little bit, but I think the best thing that I can do is to try and reduce the depth of this seed ball by about a half, because I want to try and get it into this large oversized green seed tray, and that will give it a depth of root run and plenty of oomph to grow out into the new root ball in without continually having this deep root ball. So let's see if we can do that. It's quite a weight at the moment. We have some very thick roots in here. I'm just going to try and chop my way through. You do not want to use your best shears for this. Must be a thick root in there. It's going to cut. It's going to take some oomph, as it were. Okay, some hard work that a good saw would have taken care of. If only I had one. I have managed to get rid of a lot of the root ball. There were some big old chunky roots in there. We do have some good feeder roots here, but they're drying out a little bit, so I'm going to plunge this into a bucket of water a second. There we go. Okay. So now I can start to look at combing some of these roots out. Seeing what we've got here. All the roots seem to have gone down rather than out, and that's part of the problem with having this sort of taller, deeper pot. I am disappointed with not really having anything like a nibari here. However, at least we are achieving a level of fusion, so that's quite good. I'm actually going to bring this tree out of the pot a little more. Now we do have some disappointing bits here. This kind of goes in under itself, but maybe it'll shoot some new roots and they will pull the base of the tree out a little. So, looking at the underneath, I'm going to have to cut away some of these big chunks. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's going to take me a little while. And once you've seen me do this, that's all I'm going to be doing, just to try and get a flat plane under here. Okay, so yeah, I'm quite pleased I've got quite a firm flat root base, so that's going to set the tree well. I am going to try and graft in some extra seedlings which I have got, so I'm going to cut the camera to go and get those. Okay, so I've had a little rummage through my trees and I've just picked out 3 seedlings, 2 or 3 years old, as I think I can possibly persuade to fit into this gap. Just there. So we'll get those out of the pot. I'll put this back in the bucket of water for now. Okay, so very quickly I'm just going to get as much of the soil off these roots as possible so that we can fit all three of them into a small space. This one has an interesting root. On this side, very little on this side, so that's perfect. I'm going to snip that away so we can get the tree in close and move a chunk of root there. That's perfect. And I may just remove a couple of these side pieces as well. That's better. Okay, that's number one. I'll just do the same with the other two. Okay, so I've got my new tray, well, just over halfway filled with new soil mix, and I'm going to add some release fertilizer. Mix that in, and then as the roots go down into it, then they will find it. Okay, so now then, I don't really have a front for this tree at the moment, but I do want to work fill in this gap with these other trees, so I'm going to just put it this way because that's going to be the easiest for me to work with, and I'm just spreading out these roots that do exist radially as best I can. That one's going to be difficult and come back bouncing back on itself. Actually, I might no, neither of these two are going to really want to cooperate. I'm going to shorten that piece. And I've done with it. Okay, so I think I can settle that with my front is going to be largely based on the top as much as the root ball. Two things I'm going to get rid of though for now is this particular branch here that keeps trying to poke me in the eye, and this one likewise. Just shorten that back to there for now. Keeps trying to poke me in the eye, which isn't very helpful of it. I'm going to try using grafting tape more in my fusion projects rather than the wire, which tends to cut in all the time. Okay, so first tree, which is going to get into this position, about there, I think. There, that's going to sit in there reasonably nicely, giving me a root, maybe a root to come out just a little bit more to the side. That's better. Okay, this one has a root that I can use just like so, coming off in this direction, which leaves this one to sit in the middle. Like so. Okay. I'm going to find a piece of wire to hold them in position. Yes. Okay, so it is my intention to replace this wire with grafting tape, and once the roots have started to knit into the soil, that's just going to hold those trees in position against any wind blowing them out of the way, Cooper knocking them over when I'm playing ball with him, that sort of thing. There are a couple of gaps, but at least I haven't got that inward curve there. Okay, so these roots have really been out of the ground for too long for my taste, and so I'm going to see if I can get them potted. I'm going to turn the camera off whilst I complete this operation. I need to make sure these roots go where I want them to go. And we'll be back in a few. Okay, so that's the soil in, tree watered. Always amazes me how much these actually take in terms of soil. I've used this entire bucket, which is a gallon bucket of soil mix, just to fill this tray. So you see that they do indeed have a really good root run in a flat plane, so that's quite good. So I have the 3 trees here, down here in the front, and they're tucked in nicely. Not really going to go anywhere for the time being. Now I don't want this piece of wire to dig in as some of these other pieces have done, and so yeah, this piece up here is quite ugly, so I'm going to remove this wire in a couple of months, and I will replace that with some grafting tape around to hold these trees firmly against the trunk. But for now, this wire will hold them in place while they get their roots down more firmly, probably, and then the whole tree will be firm in the pot, and I'll be able to wrap the grafting tape around with it. Let's get it on a turntable, and then we can start working on the top. Now, in terms of the trunk, I actually think this is probably my perceived front. I have the 3 trunk lines coming off quite nicely. The grafted trees that I've just put in, the youngsters, are in the back of this, but you see, this could be a front if it wasn't for this hollow. Going to see if I can later in the year, when I get some grafting tape on this tree, I will hold that piece up into there. But for now, this is all I'm going to do. Okay, so as we continue around, this is, like I say, possibly the back of the tree, but it could still be the front of the tree. I'm going to have to consider cutting back this tangle of branches. We haven't achieved proper fusion at the top here, although we're beginning to. So I need to start making some decisions about which I'm going to keep and which I'm not. I'm going to cut some of these pieces back. This piece, for example, I have this Y piece which doesn't really work. Come on, camera. And I have a small branch just below that, so I'm going to see if I can just very carefully remove that without removing the branch beneath it. Okay, so for you. I thought I was going to chop both off in one go then. Okay. I'm actually tempted. I'm going to take this whole piece off, so I'm going to take that back to there. I don't like that wide piece at all. Okay, so hopefully that'll trigger some bud slow down as well, which will help with the fattening of the trunk. They say we haven't got fusion here yet, so I'm going to leave this piece and just shorten it back. This piece, I'm going to shorten this piece back to here. That'll be the new leader on this trunk, as it were. I'm going to remove. Hello, Cooper. Hold on, everybody. Cooper wants to say hello. Poor Cooper. Poor Cooper has been in the wars, and he's feeling quite sorry for himself. He's hurt his leg, and he's not allowed to go on long walks. And he doesn't particularly like having to wear this comb, because he can't scratch his ears, so he has to get me to do it for him. Go on, buddy. Go finish this. Poor Cooper. Okay, so where was I? I'm going to shorten this and shorten some of these side branches that I'm not going to use in an eventual composition. Some are useful to keep as possible sacrifice branches to help with the thickening up of individual trunks, but I don't really want these coarse growths, so I'm going to prune that back to there. There's a dead piece just there, so once I get the grafting tape on, that'll be pulled in tight. Yes, I'm going to shorten some of these pieces back. As I say, we lost quite a lot of root, so the tree doesn't need to be trying to keep alive too much top growth. My new wire cutters are going to come into their own here, so I'm going to remove this piece of wire. That piece has done its job. It's getting subsumed into the trunk now, but that piece sticking out was just in the way. So there's a piece alive here just below this trunk, which I was going to keep grow and put up through there. I did say that earlier, didn't I? But I've just chopped that off, so that's not going to happen. Okay, that's what happens when your border collie distracts you. I'm just going to shorten a lot of these branches back to a bud, even if they're facing in, not really a desirable direction. As I say, this trunk has got a lot of filling out. I'm really not too keen on this sort of straight piece. We'll return to this tree for sure in this summer, and we'll look at correcting some of these faults. There's a chunk there that I could happily lose. I'm just going to shorten that back. This is a very odd piece. I may lose that entirely if I can just get a bud to pop. Or two. Sometimes you just gotta cut things off and hope. Okay, so this piece I'm going to lose. Or it's coming out. Similarly, these pieces are crossing, which I don't want. Now I'm going to shorten that back to there. This is kind of the primary dominant trunk, and okay, so keep working away. This piece isn't really doing anything for anybody, so I'm going to bite the bullet. There's a second piece coming out here, and I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'm going to prune that back like so. Right into the structure of the tree. Now I'm hoping that we'll get some buds pop from around there. Maybe one, even if I'm really lucky, might pop out through, but it seems unlikely. It may be that this will die right back and I'll have to deal with that at another time, but for now I'm just going to hope for some buds to pop. That's all the work I'm going to do to this tree for today. As I say, we'll come back in the summer and see how it's growing, and put some grafting tape onto some places that I want to tuck them in a bit tighter, and see about doing some more pruning and shaping once I know where I've got buds popping from. Okay, so that's all for now. Thank you all for watching, and please do take care of yourselves.